Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Beth, and if you're new, welcome. Behind me I have an old quilt. The quilt block is called Bow Tie. I'm going to show you how to make this quilt block. I think it's pretty simple. It does have Y seams which are a little bit tricky, and we're going to go over that. Let's get started. To make my bow tie block today, I'm using two 6.5-inch squares. I'm going to fold the square in half, use my ruler, and I'll be measuring 4 inches from those straight sides over there and cutting off the corners, which will leave me 2 little squares. And I'll be cutting right along that fold. And now I should have 2 little pieces for my bow tie, and the little squares that I cut off fit perfectly against that straight edge, and I'll have 1 square left over. I'm going to do the same thing with my background square, fold it in half, measure 4 inches along those 2 raw edges sides, and I'll cut off the 2 triangles. They look like triangles anyway, and again I'll use my scissor along the fold, and that will be the 2 pieces I'll need for my background. The square is exactly the right size for that straight edge right there, so I'm going to put those edges together, and this is where I'll be sewing from point to point, not straight across. So I'm giving myself a little dot 1/4 inch away from the edge, and I'm going to be sewing from one dot to the other dot. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side of my bow tie. Just put a little seam in there from point to point. I'm not drawing my little dots, but I'll start 1/4 inch away from the edge and stop 1/4 inch away from the edge. It is helpful when you're doing this to add a tiny little back stitch where you start and where you stop. And here is the background fabric. This is where we add Y seams to our quilt block. I'm going to make sure my seams are pointing in there. I'm going to start at the top and sew down and stop 1/4 inch away from the edge. I should be right at the seam of my bow tie, and I leave my needle down. I pivot the bow tie behind so that I can sew along the edge there, and again I'm going to stop 1/4 inch before the edge. I'm going to pivot again and sew that last section, that 3rd section of the background fabric onto my bow tie. I'll open it up, and I should have a nice background fabric attached to my bow tie. So this is a Y seam. It's really not that hard, but it just takes a little bit of practice. As you can see, I have a baseball theme going on with these little bow tie quilt blocks. I'm having fun finding all that baseball fabric and making these pretty blocks. Thanks for joining me here today in my sewing room. I always enjoy sharing my sewing adventures with you. I'll see you next time.